and let us all do we can to build a better future. So we all know that Biden has canceled his foreign trip and he's coming back here to the States to deal with the debt ceiling crisis. Already, I reported on yesterday's show that progressives should prepare themselves to be disappointed again due to Biden, once again, compromising and not following through with any of his promises. Also, as it stands right now, especially when it comes down to the illegal migrant crisis happening, Biden has also had a falling out with Eric Adams. Biden drops Eric Adams from campaign advisory board as New York struggles with illegal immigrants. So already these two are having a falling out. So what does this mean? Well, there's an interview with Robert Kennedy Jr. challenging Biden and is calling out both Trump and Biden and their age concerns. So this is an interview with RFK on Fox News. And I want to share this with all of you. Daniel, if there's a point in time you want me to pause the video, please let me know. But I think it's only fair that we see this and share this with our viewers and subscribers.
Ooh, the Case Study QB channel. I'm going to go check that out right after the show.
Yes, Case Study QB. Be sure to follow him on Twitter. He is wrongly being censored.
Wait, before you play it. Oh, I forgot the guy's. What's the guy on the left's name again?
Oh, God. Damn, they all look the same.
He looks like a piece of ham.
Don't insult ham like that, Daniel. What's wrong with you? Be family friendly.
Not entirely smooth sailing to another nomination from the Democratic Party. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is challenging the president for a chance to be at the top of the ticket in 2024, and he joins us tonight in studio. Sir, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
You know, there are recent polls. We have a poll out.
Go ahead.
The only time you'll see out of leadership Democrats on air is on Fox News.
Well, when she was still serving in leadership positions, I guess we were talking about politicians, because we can mention that Bernie Sanders was on Fox, and when she was still in Congress, Tulsi Gabbard was on Fox News.
But that's what I'm saying. They don't go on NBC. They don't go on CNN.
Yeah, true. Well said.
Where you are at 19%. There are other polls you're hovering around 20, 21. That raised some eyebrows in political circles. What do you think is working for you as far as topics that people are getting onto?
I think the people really want to have a solution for what's happening, and just attention to the fact that the middle class in this country is collapsing. In 1970, 62% of income in this country went to the middle class. Today, 42%. In 1970, 29% of income went to the super rich. Today, it's 50%. And that was aggravated, of course, by the pandemic, where we created a new billionaire every day, which was Donald Trump's pandemic lockdown. We created 500 new billionaires. We shifted $4 trillion in wealth from the American middle class to the super rich. And we shut down 3.3 million businesses. Those trends were continued by the Biden administration. And I think a lot of Americans want somebody who's really going to start listening to the middle class, understanding the desperation that so many Americans feel, and that is going to do something about it.
What about President Biden? Do you hear from Democrats? Is there real concern about his nomination, his ability to win? What are you hearing on the trail?
I have a long kind of friendship and relationship with President Biden, so I'm not criticizing him or attacking him personally. But I think people want to see him out of the White House and actually talking to Americans. Going to town halls, the president says that the economy is humming along, but that's not what I hear when I'm out in Western Pennsylvania.
Okay, so I want to add in a correction. I said I was concerned when, RFK was saying, Biden's a friend of the family. I mean, yes, he is a friend of the Kennedys, but the fact that you would never hear Bernie say this in 2020, saying, hey, look, I'm hearing from people in the streets, people who are at my town halls, at my events. They're all saying, hey, the economy's struggling. I'm having a hard time meeting. You don't hear that. You don't hear that. Daniel, your thoughts?
I'm not going to say anything yet.
Okay.
Ohio, New Hampshire, Florida. I see people really living in a state of desperation that I never thought I would see in the United States of America.
Obviously, there is some pushback in the chattering class about this candidacy. The Washington Post said his name is Kennedy, his campaign is pure Trump. He offers a variation on the Trumpian theme of trashing government and science while stoking fear and resentment. He decries the $100 billion cost of keeping Vladimir Putin's army out of Europe, a fraction of the nation's military budget. This sounds awfully much like America First and nothing at all like the new frontier. What's your response to something like that?
Well, on the Ukraine war, listen, I think we're in the Ukraine war for the right reasons. Americans supported it because of our humanity, because we're a good nation, we're a compassionate nation. My own son went to the Ukraine, joined the special forces, fought in the Kharkiv offensive as a machine gunner, and risked his life for the Ukrainian people out of compassion and admiration for their valor. But the objectives of the war have changed, and they've changed from Washington, D.C., and driven by the neocons of the White House. President Biden himself has said that one of our objectives is to depose Vladimir Putin. His defense secretary, Lloyd Austin, has said that the objective of America in the Ukraine is to exhaust the Russian army, to degrade its capacity to fight elsewhere in the world. That is the opposite of a humanitarian mission.
So, okay, he's obviously giving his thoughts on Ukraine, saying, okay, we were in there for the right reasons, to which I have to say, as soon as those Russian tanks got close to the border, my goodness, diplomatic talk should have taken place. Now, I know it was a point of no return, and as far as I'm concerned, the only innocent people in all of this are the civilians in Ukraine, Russia, Europe, here in America, because of this inflation and economic crisis, and of course, the threat of unending nuclear war. So I would have to say, it's one thing to say that, but on the other hand, too, the objectives being changed, trying to overthrow Putin, that is a recipe for a goddamn disaster, and that's a whole other conflict altogether. The war should have been stopped long before those tanks got close to the border. There should have been diplomatic talks. Daniel, you take it away.
So, two things. First, actually, I think that for someone of a presidential level, that's a really, really progressive view of that class. I'm talking if you compare like anyone else running in the Democratic primary.
So you're saying just progressive from just the establishment,
from just an establishment point of view, this is actually a very left thing to say. It's not anywhere close to be far enough, but I do want to give credit to anyone that isn't lockstep with the military agenda.
Yeah.
So there's first that. Second, again, remember I was saying earlier in the show how a lot of the stuff that we do now takes place and actually comes to fruition a decade in the future. So, for example, Hard Lens is where it is, 99 Perspectives where it is, because me and Kit about 7 years ago decided to start filming protests. Things take time to build up. So the reason that this is happening is because when the Soviet Union fell and NATO happened, we already know the story. They should have not expanded NATO, and they did. And then this is the natural consequence of them continuing to expand NATO from Russia's point of view. Russia has a reason that they're doing what they're doing, and America and NATO have a reason for doing what they're doing. Neither side are good or evil. They're just countries acting themselves out in their own circumstance. What's likely going to happen after all this is done is that Russia is going to start supplying oil to China and India and Pakistan in very large quantities instead of Europe. Europe's going to be more dependent on American oil, and the Saudis are going to start playing both sides a little bit more. But I think by the time you have tanks in the borders, you're already far too late to do anything. But again, this was a thing that happened because of decades of choices that led to this outcome.
Precisely. Well said. I want to continue on with the rest of the video.
That is the mission that is going to use hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian young kids as cannon fodder to achieve a geopolitical objective or aspirations of the neocons. And we've made Ukraine now a pawn in a proxy war between two great powers to achieve our objective, the vanity objectives.
So you think a peace deal could be reached?
Well, the Russians offered a peace deal at the beginning of the Minsk Accords, and in fact, when Zelensky campaigned in 2019, he's a guy who was a comedian and actor. He had no political experience. But he won with 70% of the vote because he campaigned on a peace platform, which was signing the Minsk Accords. And, the United States went in there and we undermined that agreement. And we then encouraged and provoked them to, have a full-scale war with Russia, which is something we wanted. But the Ukrainian people clearly did not want.
Yeah. I know you're not criticizing the president directly. He does get a lot of questions about his age. Most recently on MSNBC, he was asked, what Fortune 500 company would hire an 82-year-old CEO? Why should they hire you? And this is what he said.
I've acquired a hell of a lot of wisdom. I know more than the vast majority of people. I'm more experienced than anybody that's ever run for the office. And I think I've proven myself to be honorable as well as also effective.
So why should Democrats turn the page and say, choose you?
Well, the Democratic Party at this point has become the party of war, which we've never been before. We've sent 130.
You would never hear Bernie Sanders say that.
That's what I'm saying.
You would never hear Bernie say that. Now, look, I'm not voting Democrat. I'm going to be, like I said, voting third party, voting independent. But like I said, I'm going to be covering this primary, and I encourage all of you to look at this from an outside perspective, because not once would you ever hear Bernie Sanders say this in 2016 or in 2020. That is something shockingly new. And already I'm already seeing it how the DNC is going to probably double down and triple down their efforts in making sure no goddamn debate takes place.
And so
Daniel.
this goes what I was saying, that this literally puts him just like it's so crazy, because this is what we've said way before. To find anyone in American politics at the national level that even comes close to talking this way is an invisible butterfly. Is like finding an invisible butterfly. The only other person that we've ever talked about on the show that has even been this level of, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, is Tulsi Gabbard.
True.
It's like that's the only other person I can think of that has even, and she doesn't have a perfect policy, but again, it is better than anyone else by comparison to even say, hey, we're making the Ukrainians pawns in our bigger political scheme. No one, Biden would never say that. No one in leadership would ever say that.
No.
So for me, even though I know it's not where we would like it to be, it is a massive difference compared to the other people in the N Club.
Well said.
$15 billion to Ukraine. And the entire budget of EPA is $12 billion. The budget of CDC is $12 billion. 57% of Americans could not put their hands on $1,000 if they have an emergency. 25% of Americans are hungry. We have a crisis right here in this country, and I think a lot of Americans are feeling like they're tired of the forever wars. They're tired of this being a warfare state abroad and a surveillance state at home, and they want to get rid of the surveillance here, the wars abroad, close the 800 bases, or many of them that we have abroad. We're spending $1.1 trillion a year on military, on a stealth bomber that costs $1 billion and can't fly in the rain. We should take that money and build schools in this country, invest in infrastructure, create jobs here. Our real national strength is going to come from economic power and a robust economy and a robust middle class, and not from projecting military power abroad.
Well, we appreciate you coming in. We'll follow the campaign. Thank you very much.
Brent, thanks for having me.
So, final note from this. Look, I'm always hesitant to really think like, hey, okay, here's somebody decent in the Democratic Party, but everything that you heard in that interview on Fox News makes sense. I understand that there's a lot of people who are burnt out by electoral politics, and look, I'm going to be covering this from an outside perspective, but did I like all of his answers? No. but are they far better than what Marianne Williamson is delivering or what Joe Biden is delivering? And the answer is yes. I would be surprised if there will be a debate, if there if it will take place. But the thing is, Biden's track record has been god awful, and I think it's important that people call it out. Daniel, I want to give you the final word on this segment.
I don't have much more to say. I think you nailed it with that.
Absolutely. So I think, again, folks, this election cycle will start to intensify. But what I think that voters need to see are debates, more town halls, more debates, more conversations, because the American people deserve to know who's representing them. And if Joe Biden and his team are so confident, have them debate RFK Jr. and Marianne Williamson. Have the debate take place. Have the debate take place. And let us decide. Let the people decide. Break away from the two-party system, folks. That's all I have to say. That's a real thing. Vote third party, support ballot initiatives, and help build movements and organizations not connected to Washington, D.C.